concern that persists even today for gender equality is really the structure of workplaces. I think that they still are very inflexible in terms of approach, and this can create a problem for all employees, but I think particularly for those who have caregiving roles, often women, to really balance between work and home life. So for me, I think even after all of these years, even after all of the discussions around this issue, it still remains one of the most pressing challenges that women continue to confront in their careers.
I think a big concern for gender equality is the structural bias in a lot of the institutions in which we work. And by that I mean practices by colleagues or the way in which subtly people behave and their interactions in a work environment and how that impacts people because of their gender. And so I think one of the key concerns is trying to address institutional or structural biases, because by addressing these underlying issues, you reduce the likelihood of other societal problems, for instance, rights-related rights-related violations related to gender.
When we use words that are very gendered and we use gendered slang and we associate through language and through words femininity with weakness and masculinity with a lack of emotion, that not only in our minds creates a stereotype and an expectation for those stereotypes, but is also a reflection of the way that we see the world and creates such a world. And so that then creates all of the problems that we see with gender inequality. It leads to rape culture, it leads to an inequality in education rights, it leads to inequalities in the workplace, and every possible issue you can think of when it comes to gender inequalities.
Multiple levels of discrimination. When I talk about multiple levels of discrimination, I'm talking about limitations to access, fair and objective consideration, and in the lack of inclusion of women based on age, race, color, ethnic origin, family status, disability, sexual orientation, religion, or belief. These all stand in the way of everybody being able to have their fair share. And in the implementation of gender policy, it's a key consideration.
I think a bold change or solution for gender equality is inclusive activism, inclusive advocacy. By this, I mean that it's time that we have to include men in the advocacy and pursuit for gender equality. It's time that we bring men to the conference table. It's time that we bring men on board in those pursuits. Over the years, women have done the fight for themselves, and I don't really think that we are near it yet. We need more men to come on board and participate in the advocacy and activism, because most times you find that men are mostly the perpetrators of some of these crimes, and what happens is that the society today is beginning to realize that we need to bring men to sensitize boys, to train men, to inform them about the effects of gender inequality.
While I wish this wasn't considered a bold solution and just a solution, I think engaging men and boys in the campaign in the struggle for gender equality is incredibly important. I think until men and boys are taught at a very early age that men of quality do not fear equality, then we will not be in a world in which we can fully realize gender equality. For this reason, campaigns like He for She and Futures Without Violence and This Is What a Feminist Looks Like are incredibly important and will facilitate having men and boys respect and protect the rights of women and girls, which will allow us to live in a world when all people can be free of the fears of sexual assaults, gender-based violence, and sexism.